there anymore. All right, I don't need that. And here we are, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Spoiler Room. It's Maniac March. Yes, Maniac March. We are looking at films with the word maniac in it. Last week, we took a look at The Invisible Maniac, and it tested the mettle of our good friend and co-host here, who is with me. My right-hand man himself is with us tonight, Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian.
Hey, I'm glad to be back here on the show and back home. I'm not traveling. I'm not in a hotel room. This is great.
You are not calling from parts unknown. You are back in your familiar territory, which is probably a good thing for talking about tonight's film, which is, yes, folks, Neon Maniacs.
I messaged you yesterday. When I did, I think I was maybe a half hour into this movie, so I still had no idea what I was waiting for. I was like, I can't believe you found something to top last week, but you did it.
I did.
Wow.
We topped The Invisible Maniac with Neon Maniacs. And yes, sir, as always, go ahead. Give a synopsis of Neon Maniacs. Go on. Have fun.
Son of a... All right. Let me just preface this by saying, since I'm old and I didn't have to used to do this, I take notes during movies.
What? No, I took some notes too, actually. So
I take frantic notes because I have a lot going on. And usually when I'm watching movies, I'm half out of my mind with fatigue. So it's like, I need to remember this stuff. In the first 10 minutes, there's all these kids, these teenagers hanging out in the park at night and throwing the football around and having sex or starting to or trying to, hanging out in a van, smoking. I was trying to pay attention to all of their names. Like there's Sue and Steven and Lisa. She's got the shoulder pads, and Roy is the asshole. And there's a dog named Dog, and Wally is the young guy who kind of looks like Drew Carey. A waste of ink because they're all dead meats. Yes. Within the 5 minutes of their appearing on screen. The reason they're dead meats is because the Neon Maniacs is a movie about neon maniacs, a cabal of monsters who live inside the Golden Gate Bridge.
Doing good so far. You're doing good.
Do I really have to talk about this? Okay.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
They come out at night and they attack people, and they are a random collection of, you've got the Maniac cop monster, who's got this leather daddy, but he looks like Maniac cop. You've got a samurai. I feel like Bill Hader's Stefan character from Saturday Night Live from a few years ago. Sure. If you go to this club in New York, you've got, midgets, you've got bath towels.
You got samurai, you got Neanderthals, you got bikers.
Bikers, an electrical guy who's like an electrical leather daddy who touches stuff and fries it.
A one-eyed monster.
A couple one-eyed monsters in this movie. You've got the Vietnam vet guy who shows up with the machine gun at the end. But anyway, Natalie, the hero or heroine of our story, she's one of the girls in the park. She's the sole survivor of this attack that kills all of her friends, although she has no proof because all of her friends disappear by morning. And so she's, mourning and scared, and her parents are away on a trip in Rome. So she's home by herself. She's having these weird visions. And there's a guy who I keep wanting to call Paul because that was the name of the character he played in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. He is a classmate of hers, and all these people are 30 years old, keep in mind. So Stephen is Clyde Hayes. He played the guy in Friday the 13th, final chapter who got the spear through the groin when he went out to go find his girlfriend in the lake. They team up and they try and fight these monsters with the help of, I think she's in the same school as they are. She looks like she's supposed to be about 12, but she looks like she's 25. This girl, Paula, played by Donna Locke, who, much like Corey Feldman in Friday the 13th, the final chapter, is into monster movies and makeup. She's got the posters. She's got the monster heads. At the end of this movie, at the Halloween dance, she's wearing this ghoul Dracula makeup. She kind of looks like a young Corey Feldman.
A
which
little
is
bit,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
She does resemble him just a little bit, like you would have seen from like Lost Boys.
Yeah, very strange. But anyway, they all team up and there's a big school dance, a battle of the bands. This is the kind of movie we're talking about, Mark. They actually assume, the filmmakers, that we care about what happens at this battle of the bands, not like, oh, everyone's going to get killed. No, there's like 15, 20 minutes, 3 hours of these two rival bands playing like love ballads and, you know, mid 80s punk songs
Not
to each
that
other. I'm like,
long.
dude, I made the mistake. I checked Twitter and I went through like 17,000 threads and I came back and they're still playing music and the monsters haven't shown up yet.
They started to show up. Yeah, they did. They kind of.
When I say show up, it doesn't count like they walked into the building and stand in the hallway.
Oh,
and
okay.
Then 10 minutes later, the group of them burst in.
All right. Yeah. Okay. That way,
So,
I guess I can see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So then there's monster attacks, and then the movie's kind of over. It's a very basic movie, but I love it.
Oh, really? Awesome. It's good to hear. I was wondering about that.
That was my long way of describing that film. I apologize, but I got a lot of feelings about this movie, Mark.
No, there's a lot of feelings there. I could feel that feelings. I could feel it. So
is this the first time you'd seen Neon Maniacs? Is this the first time you had heard of Neon Maniacs? Was for the show? No?
I've heard of Neon Maniacs. It showed up on my list a number of times. This was actually the first time I've actually sat down and watched it. And in fact, I messaged Mr. Derek Carey, and check out Astro Radio Z podcast and his Patreon. Mr. Derek Carey, I messaged him and go, how have I not watched this sooner? I'm like, I'm digging this. I'm watching it. I'm like, this is completely my wheelhouse right here. I'm like, this is it right here, you know. Which I do have to say, his name, actually, if you notice, he told his name of his animal was Dog, but it wasn't actually Dog, it was Elvis.
Elvis, yeah.
Yes. So, haha. See, so he was just being a dick to those who were being dicks to him, as he crushed hard on Natalie.
Yeah, he showed them.
He showed them. No, I don't know. He's a delivery. They call him the baloney guy because his family runs the town meat market where he does the delivery of the meat.
I'm dizzy. I almost lost consciousness there.
He did not deliver the baloney to Natalie, not right away. He does at the most inappropriate time. Okay, folks.
Dude.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna jump around in this film. So in the third act, as Ian mentioned, there's the battle of the bands, and the monsters come out of their hiding. It's night, and they're going after. We don't know why they're going after Natalie. Don't really.
No idea.
They never really give any explanation there. But anyway, so they show up. Yeah, the Vietnam guy starts strafing people, and the Native American guy starts spearing people. Yes, there's a Native American guy. The one-eyed monster starts hooking people, and the biker starts hanging people and all that. So Natalie and her new beau, the baloney guy, was Steven, yeah. So they go running away from the Neanderthal maniac.
Or would it be the Neanderthal?
Ooh, Neanderthal. I like that. Neanderthals. Copyright. Spoiler Room 2022. Anyway, so they end up holding up and hiding in the chemistry lab. Now, they've just watched massive amounts of people get maimed, injured, or otherwise skewered by these maniacs who want to kill them. And I am trying to find my notes. I took notes on this because they hold up in this chemistry place, and they're all close to each other, like, and then as the guy goes away, they look at each other, and some of the best dialogue ever comes out, to where he goes, I was it. I didn't want anything to happen to you. I wanted to protect you. Something along that line. And she goes, "Yeah, that's how I knew you cared." And then they make out and start almost having sex right there on the chemistry floor while the maniacs are still out and about killing people.
Well, Mark, I thought this was genius, and why I thought it was deliberate that you had planned this, because if you remember, the exact same thing happened last week in The Invisible Maniac.
It
In the
did,
climax
yes.
of the movie, in the principal's office, the dead principal is like behind the desk, and these two people start having sex, complete with the cheesy love ballad.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
going on with the 80s?
It's the 80s, you know, when the moment hits you, you take advantage of it. You go for it. You just do it like Nike tells you to do. So
I guess, but it's a strange coincidence.
it is a strange coincidence. So
If something shows up in next week's movie where people are making out amidst horrible tragedy, I'm gonna say, hey, this is deliberate. Mark's
this is
messing with me.
deliberate. I'm messing with you. I just picked these movies because they had Maniac in the title. Honest.
By the way, I have proof. I have proof about my my sound or my dance paradox about the length
Yeah.
of time it takes.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
I have a note I wrote down. It said, "Dance goes on forever." Underline.
It didn't go on that long, and they were building up tension because the not so ugly maniacs were working their way through the crowd. You had the Native American maniac and the biker, the one guy that looked like a prune face, you know. So they were all in that dance. But way before that dance, yeah, we get the park scene with the. I love this setup because you get a voiceover at the beginning. You get this voiceover talking about uh kids and sin, and when society, something along the lines of when society gets degraded or whatnot, you fall victim to the neon maniacs. The opening dialogue doesn't really set anything up because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You're just like, okay, and they got this guy fishing by, by the bridge. I don't know what he's fishing for. uh
Compliments? No.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's one of the things when I say I love this movie, it's not sarcasm. I think someone should just rip off this premise, definitely come up with a better title, and just remake this damn thing.
Oh God, yeah.
Because if you look at it, you know, they don't explain who or what these creatures are. There's no like big lore scene of like, oh, 1,000 years ago, blah 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 blah, and these are the spirits of whoever. They just exist. And this came out the year before Hellraiser. And
Yeah.
yet there's something very Cenobite-ish about the way these creatures manifest, and they look very strange, and they seem to be playing by these rules that people just aren't meant to understand. And especially the ending where the like everybody gets the tip that, hey, these things live under the Golden Gate Bridge. So the cops and the firefighters go there, and our two surviving heroes go there, and they don't find anything in this storage room or whatever the hell it is, this facility. But so everybody leaves, but then there's the one detective who sticks around. He goes and opens up this paddy wagon, and there's a giant bluish white light in there, and he gets grabbed by these monsters and hurled and pulled in. That is Hellraiser right there.
That is.
I don't know if
that
these
is.
people read Clive Barker's Hellbound Heart or what before dreaming up this movie, but they beat him to the punch, and it's pretty awesome.
No, it is. It is awesome. I mean, I know we're talking about the ending first, but it is a great, and it's a fun buildup. You're right. These monsters keep changing too. Like the ones that we see at the beginning in the park, they start changing. Like you don't see initially the Native American maniac or the World War II maniac or the Doctor Maniac who shows up later as well. You're like, where'd these guys come from? You know, because most of the other maniacs had still survived their initial conflict with the teenagers, which some lovely play with shadows and low budget. So you do some creative camera angles and stuff and still have some creative kills. The opening kill scenes were actually kind of fun.
Oh yeah, I mean the scene where the one guy was getting a blowjob by the tree, and then of course she gets her head lopped off. I feel like that was a variation of that was done by Eli Roth in that Thanksgiving trailer in
Yeah.
was
What-
it Grindhouse?
Yeah, in Grindhouse. Well, what I like, okay, it sounds weird. What I liked about that beheading scene was the fact that you had the samurai Maniac come up to the couple and swing his sword, camera, POV, and then they cut to like this lower angle of just her legs on her knees, and then you just see, before you see the head flop off, you see this tuft of hair fall.
Yeah.
And then they cut to the scene to where you can see her in front of the guy, and then her head falls back. And then they do this top-down scene of the samurai swinging his sword and cuts the guy in half. It's implied they cut the guy in half.
That is like, it's possibly because it was so dark, but it's almost like a less artsy version of the guy getting cut in half in Friday the 13th Part 3, the hand walker guy.
Mhm.
But yeah, I like those kills. The one thing and this is the reason I think maybe at this point that I had texted you, because I couldn't believe what I was watching. Natalie is sitting in the van with the side door open, just like staring off into space. 50 feet away from her, two of her friends are making out heavily on the grass, about to get it on. And the neon maniac approaches both of them, and the guy's like standing up and be like, "Hey, what's going on with you?" Natalie is within earshot and certainly within eye shot of what's going on, but you can see her in the background, like just sitting in the van, like looking down at her knees. I'm like, what's happening here?
Well, because she's sad, because they just had that conversation about how she's a complete virgin yet with her friend who they were talking about isn't even on the pill. Because it's the 80s, so teens have to talk about sex, and that, I think, is what sparks the Maniacs coming out. I don't know.
Maybe, but no, I understand, being sad about being a virgin is one thing, but that does not cloud your hearing.
Oh, but that's a great introduction, because we get medieval Maniac who's got this little crossbow gun, and the guy, when he sees the Maniac, this guy, he throws a football, and the crossbow guy shoots the football with the arrow, which is great. And then the one girl starts going running, and he takes aim, and all the camera work, actually, you could tell this was directed by a cinematographer. The director of this film was Joseph Mangine, who is best known for directing a lot of indie work. I mean, he directed the original 1980s Mother's Day. He directed some softcore stuff like the Cinderella, oh
wow, really?
The Cinderella film, Lords of Flatbush, he photographed. He went on later, Alligator 2. He did the camera work on the Swamp Thing TV show. So I mean, this guy, but by up unto he was the director of photography on The Sword and the Sorcerer. Okay, this guy had experience coming into this, and you could tell with the way the camera work is in this for a film of what it is. I dig the camera angles, because you get like this wonderful shot of the medieval Maniac shooting his little crossbow gun. You get some other great like camera shots, like the one shot too where they came out when the cops go down to the Golden Gate Bridge, because there were all the dead pigeons, and they're following Natalie, because Natalie and the video girl and what's his name? They go down there to investigate.
It's Natalie, Paula, and Steven. Show some respect.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Amazing characters.
Natalie, Paula, and Steven. Thank you. I forget my own name sometimes. Natalie, Paula, and Steven go down and investigate, because they're right by where this door by the Golden Gate Bridge. There's all these dead pigeons, and the cops have been following them. So the cops show up. That scares them off. They're hanging out there, and the cops get killed by maniacs. And there's this wonderful shot of these three maniacs coming through the fog. The fog machine is just killing it. And these guys, this shot is a wonderfully framed, like, silhouette and light coming from behind. I'm just like, this film is shot far better than it should be for a film of this nature.
It is. And I think it's complemented by a story that, or I should say story elements that, frankly, I think are better than any of us had any right to expect. Because I love the idea of, and this is why I think someone should remake this and spend some more time, fleshing some things out, because there is something really interesting about this girl, and she witnesses, or kind of witness, because we established Natalie's not paying attention to much. All of
Yeah.
her friends getting killed in the park, but then disappearing. So there's no evidence. And then you get
Mhm.
like the parents are like, where the hell is my son? Where's my daughter? Why are you the only one who, survived? And, she's getting grief from like there's an older sister at school who's like trying to rough her up in the cafeteria because she's like, you're the last person to see my brother alive, or sister or whatever.
Mhm.
And she's really beaten up over this because A, she watched all of her friends get killed. B, she thinks she's gone crazy because she thought they were killed by these monsters. And C, or three, there's no one around to corroborate her story, and her friends have
Mhm.
like just disappeared. So it's a really interesting take. I was reminded of A Nightmare on Elm Street. That
Mhm.
guy, the original, with Nancy Thompson kind of going through all this stuff of her friends getting killed, and her not really having anyone to confide in because she thinks she's going crazy.
Well, not only that, but then you get Paula, who's trying to tell Natalie she believes her and everything, and she's like, "Oh, you're just some crazy attention-seeking someone." She doesn't want to talk to her. Also partly because if she talks to her, then it might actually make it real. It means she's not crazy, which she's afraid of. Yeah, she gets this phone call from a mom saying, "Hey, where's my daughter? Why are you late?" There's some interesting aspects. She gets asked, they do this interesting cut, and I imagine it's because of budget constraints, where after the conflict with the one sister, we see her getting out of the car. We get a voiceover going, "Yeah, we think you should stay away from school for a few days." I mean,
Yeah.
there's some really interesting elements to this story that you're watching and going, this is coming out of a film called Neon Maniacs. I mean, it's exploring some interesting things.
And it could turn on a dime
Well,
because
yeah.
right after the attack, like it's the night, I think we're supposed to believe it's the night after, we've established
Right.
that she's home by herself.
Mhm.
She decides to go out at night into her own backyard swimming pool and go for a swim. There's nobody else around. I'm sorry, but if I've just survived these monsters killing everybody, I'm not leaving the house. I'm probably just going to go take up residence in the police station until my parents come home. But so that's stupid. It's just stupid. But at the end, when she dives into the water, and of course the maniac is like watching her, and just as he's about to reach out and grab her, I think it's Neanderthal.
Yeah, it's Neanderthal.
She is unaware of him. She dives under the water. He's like, damn, and he runs away. She gets up onto this like floaty raft thing, and it starts to rain, and it's starting to rain blood.
Blood.
And then it's so much blood that the entire pool turns red, and it's so dark that it's like the black red of the blood, and the night sky and the dark pool water. It's so artsy. It's like something Sam Raimi would have pulled off. And it's again, I'm like, what is this movie? This is awesome.
And yeah, that's part of that cinematography. It's got to be that because I love that. I'm like, why is there blood? Oh shit, it's raining blood, and it's not just like a raining blood for just a moment and she wakes up. It's a good 10, 15, 20 seconds, like you said, to where the pool's filling up. She falls into the water as the blood is coming down, and then she wakes up. But it was like, I mean, it was Nightmare on Elm Street like. It was like impressive, and you're like, wow, I thought, way this film opened, it was just going to be about these goofy guys going around killing people, but
Well,
um
and the way that it was shot, like I figured, okay, this is going to be like a dream sequence because this
yeah.
isn't really happening.
Yeah.
But when that sequence is going on, you're like under the water, you're seeing everything kind of fill up. You are experiencing Natalie's dread firsthand, so that when she does wake up, you're relieved, even though you're like, any second now. But no, it's like, okay, finally, I'm out of the water now, even though
Yeah.
I'm watching this at my desk.
Well, there's even the tension-filled part right in the beginning where just as she's jumping into the water, you cut to the POV shot of the Neanderthal coming up behind her, like just reaching her as she dives in. And you're like, wow, there's some little tense moments in here where they set these up. And then yeah, because you're being chased by maniacs and you think you're crazy. So what do? You're gonna go on a date with Baloney Guy. Right. And there's actually a wonderful moment on in the as they're waiting for the train. to where he's taking public transportation because after he delivered the meat to her house, sorry, couldn't resist that one. They agreed to a date, and so they're out there and their immediate chemistry. I mean, she's like glommed onto him as they're going down the escalator. I'm like, well, that was quick. But while they're there and having this kind of heart-to-heart discussion and kind of like realizing they like each other, you get the maniacs just coming through the turnstile for the where you put the tickets in, and the guy behind the counter is just looking like, oh yeah, another night, another Saturday night.
Well, it's San Francisco.
That's true.
Which is why, in 1986, this is weird, creepy monster fantasy. In 2022, it's just a documentary. But but you were talking about their chemistry. There was some buildup there because now it is ridiculous because all these people are 30 years old. And there's a line that I wrote down because I took note of it. It was Steven and his friend were sitting in the cafeteria right before Natalie gets attacked by this sister.
Oh, yeah.
And the friend is like giving him crap like, dude, you've had a crush on her forever. Just like go up and talk to her. It's like, I'm waiting to make my move. And his friend said, this is only funny really because it's a guy who's got to be, the actor is like 25, 30 years old. And he's talking to another 25, 30-year-old actor. He says, you'll be past puberty and an old man before you take your shot.
Yeah. I was kind of like, wait, aren't you already past puberty? Okay, whatever.
Well, on top of that, even if he was in high school, he's gonna be this is a line for like a 12-year-old wise ass or something, But no, I like that, Steven gets he has to like work after school, and his mom is like, you gotta go make these deliveries. And he's like, Mom, I just want to sit here and play my guitar.
Yeah.
I should love rock music. But the first name on his list is Natalie. So he gets all excited. And he goes and he delivers the groceries. He puts them away and everything. And she's like, I'll give you a tip. And he's like, no, I don't want to keep it. She's like, well, I'd like to give you something. And he says, would you go to the movies with me tonight? It's sweet. It's a nice, sweet little moment.
Yeah, and it was. Again, a lot of surprises with this film. I mean, it is crazy. It's got its zany moments, but it's got this kind of, we actually do get a bit of character building between these two. Not a huge amount, but more than you might expect. And then the wonderful sequence on the train of getting chased by the maniacs on the train.
That was really neat. Again, kind of goofy. Like they take out the train conductor, and yet one of the maniacs, I think it's the electroshock maniac, is driving the train, and he knows how to drive a train.
Well, it was for that great comedic beat because they're like, wow, no one's on the train. And they're like, well, at least the conductor is. And then they cut to conductor and the hands come through and crash and biker maniac kills him and takes over.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wonderful. No, I mean, I'm a kind of a sucker for train sequences because it's long enough. So you feel like you're safe, and usually there's people on it. And you can always move to another car. But I always love that in train chases, the cars, like they start getting lopped off because people start running like, okay, we got to go to this car and this car and this car. And like, wait, there's only like 2 cars left. What are you going to do? and this movie is no different. It's kind of weird, but it becomes intense. And again, when Natalie and Steven, spoilers, get off the train and run to safety, I felt relief. I'm like, I'm glad they made it to the next stop.
Well, yeah. Well, you had that wonderful moment where they get cornered by the maniacs. The maniacs have cornered them because they've run out of cars, and I think they pull the. And it's not. This is actually what's great. I thought, she's going to pull a brake or something or do the emergency stop, but she doesn't. The actual automated safety features of the mass transit system actually save them because the train's going too fast. So when it goes too fast, the auto brakes kick in, which knocks all the neon maniacs down in the train. And then it auto opens the doors because it thinks something's malfunctioned, which gives them a chance to escape. For some reason, I found that cute because normally it would be, she's going to pull the stop and whatever. And, it's going to. So I thought that was interesting that they went that route with it.
Well, it's just something. Sometimes you see it in movies and like, oh, that's a fact you learned on the internet or someone told you about it,
Yeah.
so you want to put it in your script and be cute. This is the kind of thing that really works for a story detail.
Mhm.
Like, you get the feeling you was talking to a friend someday, the screenwriter, and it's like, what would happen if a train went way too fast? Like, could it crash? And you're like, no, it would never happen because they got an automated system that turns on and opens the doors after it stops. Like, really? I'm gonna put that that's how I'm gonna end my wacky train sequence. Why can't I say the word chain? Train. Either one. Yeah.
Are you
Weird.
sure that's water and coffee you're drinking, sir?
No, I'm not sure of anything anymore. I want to talk real quick about before I forget. Was it Natalie's best friend Lorraine?
Yeah.
What happened to her? Was I on Twitter and then did she just disappear from the movie? I didn't see her die.
I'm not sure. I don't think she died because she shows up later. Yeah, because she keeps showing up during the film.
Because I saw her like right before everything went to hell at the dance. I think she was like, I'm going to go talk to my friend. And then I didn't see her again.
Yeah, she just disappeared. I think. I don't think we actually really get to see her again.
Did you recognize her?
Did I recognize who she was? No, I did not.
Another Friday the 13th alum.
Oh.
She was Sandra, the bottom half of the dual bed impaling in Friday the 13th Part 2.
Ah, okay.
The actress Marta Kober was her name. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're talking 80s, and I mean, we get the trend today now too with the horror films being at growing in their popularity. You get cross casting because they were in this previous, so hey, they'll do another horror film because someone will hire them because hey, you were in this horror film. You're familiar with getting blood on you or not blood on you or whatever you want.
Well, that's the thing about because Steven, he's a real character in this movie. The Paul character he played in Friday 4 was just like the jerk boyfriend who kind of cheated on his girlfriend, but then had a change of heart right before he got speared in the dick. There's something to this Steven guy, and music aside.
What, you didn't like his Dollar Tree Rick Astley band who was going against a metal band, which was a Dollar Tree D. Snyder band, Twisted Sister?
I screwed myself, Mark, because I wrote down in my notes when I just saw the poster, flyer for the dance earlier in a high school scene. It said Battle of the Bands, the Outlaw Boys versus Jaded.
Yes.
I wrote down, I want to see this Battle of the Bands. Little did I know
you were going to get the Battle of the Bands, which you had pop, synth, rock, soft rock, ballad, and kind of a rock song, a more like pop song, versus a full-on metal band. I use the term loosely, but they were supposed to be metal band, and for the most part, their music was. But I just loved how is this even a battle? These are two completely different genres of bands. There's no competing between these two.
Especially not with that crowd. I mean,
no, especially not with that crowd who seem to like both though. So they're diverse in their tastes of music apparently because they liked both.
I would have loved to have seen like some real punks in the audience, like at the school, like mixing it up. Like when the Neon Maniacs show up, they don't know whether or not to fight them or join them.
That would be awesome. We've got some little trivia from IMDb, which makes a lot of sense. I guess because of production issues on the film, a lot of sequences in the latter half had to be cut because of cost of special effects required were just too high. One of these involved the maniac named Axe, who is the maniac who resembles an escaped lunatic in the form of an asylum in a straitjacket, because he shows up briefly. He briefly shows up. We get one shot of him. I'm like, where did that maniac come from? Playing hoops with the severed head of one of the students at the Halloween party. Apparently he was going to be doing basketball with,
Wow.
And apparently it was never brought forth, probably because I think it's, due to budget cuts. Apparently there's a better explanation of the maniacs. You know, the truck that you talk about with the lights,
Yeah.
Well, apparently, according to IMDb, and this seems to be written by folks who were in the know with it, the Maniacs are from another dimension, and they come to Earth via a portal that's in the back of the old truck inside the storage facility at the foot of the Golden Gate Bridge. And they were planning on having up to 27 Maniacs. Apparently, that was in the original script, 27 different Maniacs. So they pared it down to the 12 that we get in the film altogether.
I like that because, you know, we kind of mentioned Hellraiser before. You've got the three main Cenobites in those movies. You kind of get that set up here, like in the park. Like, okay, there's 5 of these guys, and then you see a few more later on, and then you see a few more. Like, how many of these creatures are there, and why are they? Because you're right, there are archetypes. You got the Neanderthal and the Indian and the doctor and the cop, and like you just wonder, are these possessed corpses of other people? Are they purely aliens who just took on the visage? Because they're not all of them look like people. Like there's the one-eyed monster that we talked about. There's some people who look it's kind of like a cross between Hellraiser, the Village People, and Nightbreed.
Yeah. Oh, definitely some Nightbreed vibes. Definitely some Nightbreed vibes with these. But the effects look decent though, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, the makeup effects, I know it had to do also with camera and lighting because you're dealing with a cinematographer guy, so he knows how to do that. But still, I mean, I dug all the makeup effects on these guys. They all looked different and had that creepy vibe to them. You get this wonderful extended scene. One of the first Maniacs to reach the school was this doctor who he hadn't seen before. And he comes up on this security guard and he kills him initially. You're like, oh, that's cute. He kills him. And then we cut back to him and he's slicing him. You're like, what is he doing? And then we cut back again. And we've got this, I don't know, some show in the back that mentions heart or whatnot. And he pulls out the guy's heart and it's beating in his hand. And I'm like, that's a really cool scene. I didn't, where did this come from? You know? Yeah. Oh, what other thing? It would be interesting to have seen who they originally wanted for this. Albert Pyun.
Makes a lot of sense.
But they couldn't get him because he was doing Radioactive Dreams. He was deep into it. So apparently they settled for his cinematographer from The Sword and the Sorcerer, which is who we got. Which would be interesting to see if Albert got behind this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like that would have been cool, but I'm kind of happy with the movie that we got.
Now we haven't talked much about Paula, who I got a kick out of. I mean, we're talking 86, so her family must be doing well because she's got a camcorder and a hell of a setup. She actually produces films. She's got like a crew and an audio recorder and everything. And
like the 2 TVs, the VCRs set up across from each other. What struck me, 2 things. One, I know you're going to relate to, which is reminded me of Dawson's Creek, a show that we both love and have encyclopedic knowledge of.
Sure.
I'm kidding in your case. I'm not kidding in mine.
Yeah. No, I know you enjoy the Creek. That's fine.
I think the DVDs are back behind me somewhere. Anyway, but yeah, in that TV show, one of the charms of it was that Dawson and his friends living in the Creek, they were young, Spielberg obsessed young filmmakers back in the late 90s. That reminded me of, Paula and her friends to a T. I also loved that she had like some 80s movie posters hanging in her house, but she also had like production stills. I think there was one from Alien that I hadn't seen before. It looked like the derelict ship with the kind of the holes in the side of it, but from a different still that I'd seen. I'm like, this is what Stranger Things should have looked like. Instead of like every movie poster from every 80s horror movie like hung very neatly in a bedroom, this looked like a teenager's bedroom.
Yeah, well, you get this wonderful shot. Our introduction to Paula, we follow her into her room, and this wonderful 360 shot. It's a take shot to get an idea of her layout and what type of character she is. This is actually a great character building. If anybody ever was wondering, how do you visually build a character without doing a lot of like exposition or dialogue? this is a textbook. You go into her room as she goes in there because I forgot, she was sent up by her parents, and the camera pans around her entire room, and yeah, you see the camcorder and the equipment, you see the posters, then you see the masks, then you see some masks that look like they're half finished, and you see some other things that look like are being worked on, like for a video production, and all the way around the room. And then you come back to the room as she flops on the bed. You know who this character is just from that scene, and I loved it. And her character is great too, because the alien reference comes back later, because when she goes to try to tell Natalie, hey, I believe you in the crazy Maniacs, she's wearing I want that hat. She's wearing a USCC Nostromo hat.
If you'll notice, her not boyfriend, but her boyfriend, the guy she's
her friend,
they're wearing matching Nostromo hats.
Yes.
I thought that was very cool.
I love the Nostromo hat. I'm like, dude, I want that hat. But she was great. There's this whole sequence where she's making a film in a graveyard. She's actually got an actress. She's got her talent, and she was just a really cool character. You're right. This is kind of what the character you want from Stranger Things, because she was doing, the nostalgic stuff, but at the same time, it wasn't like, oh, look at her, she's doing, she's in 2 movies. She's just a filmmaker. She takes her camera and she actually captures the weakness of our maniacs, while trying to film proof that, Natalie, you aren't crazy. There are actual maniacs out there. And she tried to film it with, okay, do you have a lot of experience with mid 80s camcorders?
No.
Okay. I don't remember the night vision being that good on an 80s camcorder. I don't know. She had a higher end one though, so it could have been, but she does some night vision on there, and I'm like, that's some damn good night vision for a camcorder. But she takes it home. She, of course, her evidence didn't record, but we learn what is the weakness of our maniacs. Of all things, Ian, what is the weakness of our maniacs?
Water.
I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was better than M. Night's water, because it's not like aliens invading the Earth that's 80% water. These guys just came out of the back of a truck, and they're in the, under the Golden Gate Bridge, but
they live inside a bridge that is on a giant body of water.
Well, it's next to. It's not on. It's next to. It's not like on it. But they don't pick where. I don't think they can pick where their portal comes out. It just comes out from wherever, and it just.
We've established that they can drive. Move the damn portal truck away from the body of water.
That's true. They could have, but they were fine. But I just love, and the reason I bring it up is what I loved it, because there's this wonderful effect where one of the maniacs, while she's filming them down at the Golden Gate, one of the maniacs trips and his hand gets into a puddle of water, and it gets all frothy, and you can see the bones in the hand, and it looked wonderful. I'm like, that is awesome. But later on, you get another night. The next night, they're going to come out to do some killing. And it was great, because just as they're coming out, it starts raining. They're like, nope, we're going back inside. And I don't know. I found that funny. I enjoyed that, because I'm like, okay, these aren't like guys who, we'll just muscle through the rain or whatnot. These guys were like, no, we're going to delay our killing. Delay of rain, due to rain.
Yeah, and I think for some reason I had it in my head that it had to be holy water or something, but it was just water. I think
it was just water. Yeah.
Partially, I was tuned out looking at Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but I love that Paula breaks out the fire hose at the school dance.
Oh,
I love that the kids have squirt guns. I love that at the end, when the cops and the fire department are going to investigate the building, the cop opens up his trunk, and there's a squirt gun in there and an Uzi.
Yeah,
What the hell police force is this?
well, the other one had a shotgun and some rifles and rifle bags, and they
Right,
grabbed
but yeah, okay, rifles you see in cop movies, but
but
not an
Uzi.
Uzi unless it
Well,
was confiscated by street toughs or something. I guess that
well,
should be in an evidence locker.
I thought maybe it was an Uzi water gun. What,
Maybe.
what and that was another thing that bucked expectations because so everybody's got water guns and the maniacs show up and you think, oh, okay, this is where everybody's going to band together and they're going to shoot the maniacs with the water guns, like you would normally have. Oh, they did this setup of, hey, we're going to give everybody water guns. And no, when the maniacs show up and start actually offing people, especially when the guy with the gun starts shooting, everybody dropped their water guns and just bolted. And the guys on the, it is Rick Astley guy. He's like, no, shoot him with water guns. Really, it'll work. And they're like, we don't fucking care. They're good. But I kind of like that they build up to it and it didn't actually work. It wasn't like, oh, they band together and start everybody shooting the maniacs with the water guns. No one did. So you get the hose out with that wonderful shot where she takes the straitjacket maniac's head clean off with the water.
I want to ask you about something because we established with the park in the beginning that all these kids disappeared.
Right.
Because they're dead. At the end of the movie, a lot of these kids run out of the high school, but later on, like at the police station, and you see all this, like these townsfolk, these parents show up and they're upset. It feels like all the kids who just ran out of the school, like they all disappeared too. Did you get that impression? I got the feeling that like the parents were like really concerned because none of their kids came home.
I got that impression, though there were a lot of kids that were offed by the maniacs.
There were, but you also see a lot of people just running out of the building too.
Yeah, they may be hiding too, and so the parents, they may have not made it home yet, and so the parents are asking where they're at because the kids are hiding, but they could have disappeared. Yeah. I wanted to know what they were doing with the bodies. See, that's why I would have wished this would have got a little better budget and they would have been able to film more, because I'm wondering if they were taking the bodies back to their dimension. It would seem implied.
That would be very Phantasm.
That would be very Phantasm. But we've already noted this thing is borrowed from a number of other films. So
and I think it feels like some films have borrowed
from it. Yeah.
It's always hard to tell with these things because I mean, really, did Clive Barker watch?
Yeah, you never know.
Maniacs?
You never know. This type of film, he might have.
No one's ever gonna watch this shit. I'll put it in my movie. It's a real film. That's the thing is if they bring it. Do they bring them back through that dimension? Do they turn them into these maniacs? Are all the maniacs former victims of the maniacs?
It's hard to say. I don't know if that's in the trivia or not, but yeah. Well, I like the mystery around the maniacs, and the way it ends, you can tell that the way it ends, the immediately way this film ended with them riding off in the car and saying, well, the maniacs are gone for now. I mean, you can kind of tell it's like, okay, they had to find some way to end it because they were running out of budget. But I would have liked to see them do a little bit more with this, Well,
it's nice because you mentioned, it is a horror movie, so they got to leave it open for a sequel. But you don't have the bit where, because the cop getting sucked into the van is like the second to last scene. The last scene is our three heroes driving away. And it's not like they get stopped or you see a hand like jump up into the screen. I think it's Steven says, well, this rain can't last forever. And so that is kind of an indication that yes, they're only safe for a little while, and then there might be a sequel.
Yeah, it was kind of set up for the sequel, not too blatant, but it was kind of that old school, the saucers have left Earth, but for how long?
Exactly. That's great.
It felt kind of like that from the 50s. You're right, because the maniacs didn't come out from the Golden Gate from their dimension because it was raining. So, yeah, I mean, I digged it. Like I said, it was one of those films. I'm watching it going, why haven't I watched this sooner? Because this is one of those films that you wonder why people like myself and yourself as well, enjoy some of these films like this, from the 80s. Why do you enjoy these 80s kind of B films? Because for every few crap ones you end up watching, or ones that you're just like, wow, this is kind of just, not entertaining, kind of you get ones like this, like Neon Maniacs. Like, you're like, look at what they did with what they had, and this film is far more entertaining than you would expect it to be with the title that it had.
Yeah, because I'd never heard of this movie before, and then when I started watching, I'm like, oh, I'm in for a real headache. And I wasn't. I enjoyed this thoroughly, except for those 3 hours of that dance scene.
The dance scene, yeah, it slows on the dance scene, which
I did like that the one girl who was like very obviously drunk just started dancing with the one maniac.
Oh, that's a wonderful scene. Yeah, it was the Native American, the maniac dressed like a Native American, but he's coming in for the kill, and the drunk girl comes up and she's got her drink in her hand, and she stumbles forward and the drink splashes, and suddenly the maniac starts backing up like, oh shit, and her drunk, and she's just waving her drink around like, oh yeah. And then the guy walks by and just steals her drink, and she's like, oh.
It's kind of like that scene in Gremlins during the big melee where the one gremlin has like 6 cigarettes in his mouth and the other one's trying to light it. He's like,
yeah, this is really, folks, you want a good, fun B 80s monster film, I would recommend Neon Maniacs. This is by far shot better and put together better than you might expect from a film like this. What's your final thought with it, Ian?
That is my final thought as well, except that, don't let the title fool you. It's an awful title. I know. And I don't think we really discussed why they call it Neon Maniacs, is because their blood or their resin that they leave behind is,
yes.
It's basically antifreeze. It's this glowing green goo, but it's a terrible title. I don't know what else you'd call this. It's the perfect title for an 80s monster movie, but it's so much better than the title would let on.
It is. And we have some trivia involving the title. Apparently, scriptwriter Mark Carducci coined the term Neon Maniacs as the title to a poem about Hell's Angels that he wrote in college, but used it to refer to the idea of newness in monster cinema. He chose neon to evoke neo, as well as nocturnal, as neon lighting is the best viewed at night. And though ultimately he wanted to tap into the electric energy and excitement of punk rock and heavy metal by mashing up the words neon and maniac. So there was some logic behind it. So
if that paragraph or paragraphs had been like a little white box next to the movie rating on the poster, I would totally respect that.
Go figure. This writer didn't do much, but he did write one other film, the screenplay, to a film that is on our horror of 1988 list. The writer of Neon Maniacs wrote Pumpkinhead.
That's surprising to me because now we're going to watch Pumpkinhead later this year.
Yes, we are. Don't look so disappointed.
No, this is going to be good for me because I think I've tried watching Pumpkinhead like 3 times in my life.
Wow.
I don't know that I've ever finished it. Because
really?
For me, Pumpkinhead is the dance scene of this movie for an hour and a half.
Wow.
I take that back. I might have actually reviewed Pumpkinhead, but I have no recollection of actually of making it to the end. I don't know.
Hopefully we can have you on that episode because that'll definitely be interesting. But yeah, the guy hasn't written much, but he did write Pumpkinhead, so I find that interesting. That those are a couple of his feature films under his belt.
I want to see a movie about this guy called House of Carducci.
House of Carducci would be cool. Would be cool. Yeah, that band scene. It was hilarious too because it was supposedly a battle of the bands, and usually when you see those in film, you see the bands and they get kind of, they've got some rivalry between them and or whatever, or they're dicks to one another or whatnot. Here the pop band played, led by our guy, and then his band took a short break and they're down dancing to the music of the heavy metal band. And I'm like, this isn't much of a battle of the bands. You guys are just doing a concert and you're just trading sets.
Yeah.
and then so the follow-up, because what's so hilarious about the scene is the follow-up to the heavy metal band's extensive metal song, and I use that in quotes. It was metal. There were heavier guitars and loud drums and some lyrics being sung. Couple lyrics being sung. Then they switch to the other band again, who plays a love ballad slow song. And you're like, what kind of battle of the bands? There's no battle here.
They're trying to lull the enemy to sleep, I guess.
Lull each other to sleep or something. I don't know.
I do. I have to ask though. Also, how soundproof were the walls in this gym? Because at one point, one of the maniacs drives a motorcycle.
Yes.
Front door of the school and starts riding down the hall, and cut to the inside of the dance. Like, hey, it's a great party. Like nobody fucking notices a motorcycle driving through the school.
Well, it was a loud band, so the band was loud. So.
It's not how sound works.
No, never mind the fact they somehow divided the gym by a V. So the one band's on the one side and the other band's on the other side, and there's this V in the middle, V-shaped wall, so you could kind of see both. I don't know.
Well, it's probably designed by people who are like, someday they're going to have a battle of the bands in this gym.
Possibly. So there you have it, folks. Neon Maniacs. Far better than the Invisible Maniac.
But as we discussed with the dual makeout in the face of horrible murder, a good double feature.
A good double feature if you're looking for films with makeout during major disaster. Yeah. Seek it out, folks. It is playing on Tubi, but the rip on Tubi does not look as good as the rip that there is on YouTube. I'm not really an advocate of pirates, but this is a hard film to really find. And if I had the choice, I'd watch it on the YouTube rip because there's a couple graphics, but it didn't distract me. And it is far better. I don't know if these guys corrected it themselves or it was taken from a Blu-ray rip or what that was cleaned up, but it looks a lot better on YouTube than on Tubi. So, but seek it out. Neon Maniacs. It's fun little 80s film. And yeah, I could see myself watching this again because it's not that long and it's quirky. It's got so many fun moments. So,
well, I mean, you just mentioning Blu-ray rip. I'm like, I would love to, if I find out this is coming out, I'm going to buy it.
Yes, absolutely. If anything, for the wonderful plethora of practical effects that you have in this film and gimmicks going on in this movie, that alone, if you're a fan of practical effects, it's one, and makeup effects, it's one you want to check out. So thank you so much for listening to us ramble here, our second Maniac March episode. Next week, we will have our Horror of 1988 episode where we're going to talk the Maniac Cop. So that should be fun and interesting. But as always, now is the time for my guest to have his license to shill. So Ian, by all means, the floor is yours.
Why, thank you. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have a YouTube channel, which is just look up Kicking the Seat on YouTube. And I do movie reviews and round tables and all interviews and all that good stuff. Plus, this will probably be
This will be just after. Yeah.
Just after. So tomorrow, Wednesday, March 9th, doing a roundtable with Earth's mightiest critics, including my lovely and talented friend Mark here. We're going to be talking about the Batman. So since you'll be watching this on the rerun, you can go to the Kicking This at YouTube channel and watch what we thought of the Batman. Guaranteed good time by all, because, spoiler alert, not everyone is as enamored with the Batman as most people seem to be. Two guesses as to who that might be.
Not spoiler alert. It doesn't surprise me. So no, anyway.
It surprised me. It surprised me, and I'll just say, I know we've had our Batman conversations on some of these pre-shows here, but I did not like the movie for reasons that had nothing to do with why I expected I would probably not like the movie.
Ooh, so there's a little extra little tantalizing tease. So, you know, every time you say Earth's mightiest critics, I think of Captain Caveman, to where I just want to say, if I'm going to be able to make the episode, you go, the Earth's mightiest critics and son. But and on that note, we'll say a good night, everyone.
Good night.